Amala Prema can translate it for you as we chant. Jai Gora Madhava Kunja Vigate Ayurad Madhava Kunja Vigate Janapalabha Gimadodhavate Janapalabha Gimadodhavate Rajan Ranjana Sudanandana Rajan Ranjana Donatira Vanda Shanti Tera Shanti Jai Gora Madhava Kunja Vigate Jai Madhava Kunja Vigate Janapalabha Gimadodhavate Janamadhava Asunandana Rajana Purnandana Rajana Onatera Anachate Amanatera Amanachate Jai Gora Madhava Kunja Vigate Jai Gora Madhava Kunja Vigate Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paramahansa also Teta Satashi Shimad, his divine voice Abhaya Chalanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Mahashila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nantagoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Huidas Thakur Ki Jai. Parem Se Go Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadha Shri Vasati Gaur Bhaktivinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Bhagavata Sai Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavanam Ki Jai. Machuranam Ki Jai. Navadvipanam Ki Jai. Jagadasami Ki Jai. Yamunamai Ki Jai. Shrimati Lasadevi Ki Jai. Samavita Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premananda. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gaur Premananda. Hari Hari Bo. All right, so Om Ganati Mirandasya Gananjana Shalakya Chakshur Meditam Yenitasmai Shri Gurave Maha. So we'd like to welcome everybody, I guess, to the camp and to the seminar, which is entitled Ethics and Morality in Krishna Consciousness, and also, I guess it would be subtitled The Last Leg of Religion in Kali Yuga. It's interesting, because primarily we're going to be talking about truthfulness and honesty, when we're talking about ethics. All right, so I think we have 5 days for the seminar. I'm leaving on Friday, so Thursday is my last day here. So we're going to try to complete everything. So the first day, we're going to scare all of you. Because the first day, we're going to talk about primarily the symptoms of Kali Yuga. And if you haven't discovered yet, that's the age you're in. If you're thinking you're Satya Yuga, you're in Satya Yuga, or Dwapara Yuga, or Treta Yuga, forget it. You're in trouble. So, well, let me define first, what is ethics and what is morality? I'm going to be using the two pretty much synonymously, but actually there is a difference between the two. Ethics are the principles, abstract, like a principle of honesty, and morality is basically the functional, how you function with that principle. In other words, ethics would be morality, for an example, ethics would be truthfulness, and morality would be don't lie. You understand? So, I'm just using the two synonymously, otherwise it'll get confusing, and I'll get confused as I'm giving this particular seminar. Okay, so we'll start with the symptoms of Kali Yuga. Now, many years ago, I wrote a rap song, I'm not going to sing it for you, about Kali Yuga, and you're welcome to go on to my website, www.bkgoswami.com, listen to the rap song, and we go through, based upon the Srimad Bhagavatam's descriptions in the 12th canto, the symptoms of Kali Yuga. So now we're going to get more specific and explicit about some of the symptoms so you can see what we're dealing with when we're dealing with ethics, honesty, and morality. So we're going to read a little bit from the 12th canto, and actually the second chapter in the 12th canto, and also the third chapter in the 12th canto. We've got a few quotes. I don't know if I'll go through all of them. And after we do this, we'll start with the topics of ethics and morality in the Krishna consciousness movement. We're going to try to be as interactive as possible. Now, all right, before I start that, let me go back a little bit. So, the reason I'm picking this particular topic is because I see that many devotees act unethically and immorally. And I'm not talking about, what? The four regulative principles, although that is a challenge too. Not many devotees eat meat. Some devotees take intoxication. Illicit sex is a big one. Gambling, I don't know about. Sometimes. So, what we're talking about ethics and morality that are basically general standards for almost every, quote, civilized society. Like honesty, truthfulness, being kind to other living entities, stuff like that. That's what we're going to be talking about, rather than the four regular principles. And I see a lot of deviations in ethics and morality. In fact, in my studies of ethics and morality, even outside the Krishna conscious movement, I found out that the people who think themselves most ethical, most moral, are usually the people who are not ethical or acting unethically in many circumstances or immorally in other circumstances. Because every one of us, and if I asked you, you'd probably all lie about this, but has anyone here told a lie in the last week? Raise your hand. We only have about 4 people here who are truthful. You know, and I'm talking about what they call white lies. A white lie means something you think, oh, it's not going to hurt anybody, it's a little lie. Like that. But we lie. We have to be honest about it. So, that's interesting, be honest about lying. And when you're honest about it, you're introspective, you're looking at yourself, you're looking at your life, you're less likely. Unfortunately, in the Krishna consciousness movement, and in religious societies in general, you think that you're so elevated, so spiritual, that those things down there are not important. And so oftentimes I say that spiritual, we're not humans anymore. And I know we're not humans, we're spirit soul. But while we're in this world, we should act as humans, as perfect ladies and gentlemen, as Srila Prabhupada stated, right? Prabhupada was asked about the qualities of his devotees, disciples. Prabhupada said, you cannot find any fault in them. Well, unfortunately, just to be honest, I have so many faults. I'm pockmarked with faults. And I guess none of you are, but I am. So we should aspire to come to the standard. Why? I mean, what does it make a difference? Well, big difference is you may go to jail, but apart from going to jail, and actually there's many examples of people who actually thought they were ethical, religious, and everything like that, and they cheated in the stock market, or they cheated in accounting, and they ended up in jail or prison, as the case may be. So that's a big reason. But I think even more important, for our own Krishna consciousness, we should be cultivating the mode of goodness. The mode of goodness is extremely important. That means truthfulness, all these other nice things that are mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. Why is it important? Because from that standpoint, you can be equipoised, you can concentrate, meditate on the holy names, and make some spiritual progress. Oftentimes, I'll slow down, don't worry. Oftentimes, I use the example that if you want to take an airplane, you go to the airport, right? Usually you don't take an airplane from Fruska, Gora. You have to go to the airport. So that's why the mode of goodness is important. It's like our airport from which we can take off to the spiritual world. In and of itself, it's not sufficient to take us to the spiritual world, but it's necessary. These are logical terms. To cultivate, for most of us, to cultivate the mode of goodness. So that's another reason why these, what we call sub-religious principles or ethical principles, are important. And a very important reason apart from that is that we want our movement to grow exponentially. That means we want to take over the world. We're a revolutionary movement. Tadva Visargo Janataga Biplavo Yasmin Pratishlokam Abadabajapin Mananantashi Yasho Nikataniyat Srimanti Gayanti Grananti Yad Sadavaha. So we want to create a revolution in the misdirected lives of an impious civilization. And in order to do that, we have to be respected. Right? Like every time a devotee does something wrong, gets arrested or something like you see in the newspaper, Hare Krishna kills someone. Doesn't happen very often. But people remember that. So people should see us as wow, outstanding, honest, trustworthy person. Because if you break someone's trust once, guess what happens? They can never trust you again, right? If you catch someone in a lie, even a little tiny lie, then that's broken. It's like breaking a glass, and you put it back together, but it's never the same again, right? So for these various reasons, the internal reason, avoiding going to jail, which is obvious. Internally, cultivating our Krishna consciousness, and as far as our mission-based reason, which is to take over the whole world. We're real revolutionary. Now we can't even take over our own minds. That's the problem. So we got to take over the world. So for those various reasons, that's why I decided to do this seminar. Very, very important. Okay, so we're going to start, as I promised before, scaring you all to death, telling you about Kali Yuga. Either you can listen to this class or watch the news. You got a choice. Okay, so we start from the first text in the second chapter of the 12th canto. And Shukadev Goswami is stating that in Kali Yuga, religion, truthfulness, cleanliness, tolerance, mercy, duration of life, physical strength, and memory are all diminishing day by day. That means every day there's a perceptible change. And I've seen, of course, every day is hard for me to measure, but I've seen in the last 20 years or last 100 years since I joined the Hare Krishna movement, that, she doesn't like my jokes, but in the last 100 years since I joined the Hare Krishna movement, things have dramatically changed. The world is much more dangerous. People are lying and cheating more. There's more diseases that are occurring. More people have like Alzheimer's disease, and so many of the weather patterns are changing. There's global warming, global cooling, floods. Many countries are going underwater right now. So practically speaking, you can see this happening within a short span of time. And you can imagine what it would be like at the end of Kali Yuga. 430 some odd thousand years. And then, as we know, people living underground, eating human flesh by the pound. I know it rhymes. And it's going to be horrendous. Of course, that's how they preached to me when I first joined the Krishna. Before I joined the Krishna consciousness movement, the devotees told me I had to join, shave my head, and wear bed sheets, or else I'd be living underground, eating human flesh. I would shrink or something like that to the size. And of course, I took that as an offense and I ran away. It took me 2 more years to join the Hare Krishna movement because of that. So here's some more symptoms. And we see this every day. Wealth alone is considered a good sign or the sign of a man's good birth and proper qualities and everything like that. And you get law and justice. Justice is not blind anymore. It's based upon who you know and what power you have. And here's a big one. Even it affects the Hare Krishna movement. Men and women will live together just because they get attracted. When I first joined the movement, if men, brahmacharis and brahmacharinis wanted to live together, they got married. Remember that, Mother? Nowadays, they don't. Not in every case, but in many, many cases. So it even affects the Hare Krishna movement. We're not immune from these things. But by the process of desensitization, we see these things again and again. We think it's all right. Right? We see it the first time, some brahmacharini, they're living together. You say, oh, they're really in Maya, they blooped. Nowadays, oh, Hare Krishna. Sannyasi like myself will say, can I visit you? Can I come to your home? Give me a donation. I bless you. Sorry about that. So things have really gone downhill since then. I even asked devotees, why don't you get married? And they said, well, it'll be too much trouble later on to split and get a divorce. So much money spent on the lawyers and time waiting. Oh my God, let's just be free. So anyway, the point I'm making is that we are actually susceptible to these things. And it's no more religious now than it was 40 years ago. Because these principles, not only the principles of, the regulated principles, but these principles of morality and ethics are coming from God. Dharmam Tusacha Bhagavad Pranitam. Some of them are in the Manu Samhita and other Vedic literatures. But they're definitely God-given principles. General principles. Morality, kindness, getting married. Sorry if I'm offending anybody, but I apologize. So in other words, morality doesn't change. It's not relative. Of course, the morality that a society exhibits changes, but eternal morality, eternal ethics don't change. Also, success in business is based upon deceit. Men and women will be judged how expert they are in sex, and a man will be known as a Brahmin by wearing a what? A thread. Prabhupada said someone who doesn't have Brahminical qualities can be called a sacred thread holder. Don't go around calling devotees that. But we see this all the time. That Brahmins, Prabhupada said, means quality, not but simply by initiation or not by birth. So another thing is that a person's spiritual position will be understood according to his external symptoms. In other words, just because I wear a sannyasi garb, you think I'm nice and you respect me. But actually I'm a rascal. How do you know? Maybe you don't. So this is happening. In fact, we had one person, one time, a person became a guru in the Krishna consciousness movement, and a devotee asked him, when did you become a pure devotee? When was your pure devotee initiation? So I said, they weren't asking me, of course, but I said to that particular person, if there is such a thing as a pure devotee initiation, show me where it is. I need a quick release from this conditioned state. And so, but we see everything externally. That's the real point. And one who is very clever at juggling words will be known as an intelligent person. I'm going to skip some of these. It says, as the earth becomes crowded with corrupt population, whoever among any of the social classes shows himself to be the strongest will gain political power. Not only the strongest, the one who has is the most, let's say, audacious. That's a big word. You know what that word means? Okay. One who is the most audacious. And you see this, let's take America, for example. I'm not going to mention his name. One of the candidates for president of the United States. It's unbelievable. He's just like, in your face, buddy, And so you see, he's definitely a symptom of Kali Yuga. Okay? That people will suffer from cold, wind, heat, rain, and snow. Global warming predicted there, weather patterns being disrupted. There will be many quarrels, hunger, thirst, disease, and severe anxiety. And we already mentioned here about people being reduced to being very small. I'm not going to go with that particular one. And I'm not going to talk about Kalki here. So we'll go on to the 3rd chapter of the 12th canto. When there is a predominance of cheating, lying, sloth, that's laziness, sleepiness, violence, depression, lamentation, bewilderment, fear, and poverty, that is the age of Kali. Because of the bad qualities of the age of Kali, human beings, this is from the 3rd chapter of the 12th canto, text 31. Because of the bad qualities of the age of Kali, human beings will become short-sighted, unfortunate, gluttonous, means eating too much, lustful, and poverty-stricken. The women becoming unchaste will freely wander from one man to the next. Okay, that's a brief summary of where we are. Now we're going to what we want to be. We're going to talk about truthfulness as one of the legs of religion. And then we're going to talk about the challenges to truthfulness. I have basically at least 50 challenges to truthfulness that we have to watch out for. And this is based upon some academic studies I've done. I've either on the internet or read books about honesty within this age of Kali, and criminals who get put in prison because they succumb gradually to telling big lies after telling small lies. In other words, you can't just tell a small lie and not have it grow in your activities and your behavior to something big. Okay. So, let's see. What we're going to do right now is read a little bit more from the Srimad Bhagavatam and about the important qualities a human being should have before we actually start discussing it. So, let's see. This is from the Srimad Bhagavatam 7th canto. These are general principles of ethics and morality. From 7th canto, 11th chapter, text 8 to 12. And I'll read this. These are the general principles to be followed by all human beings. Truthfulness, mercy, austerity, observing fasts on certain days of the month, bathing twice a day, tolerance, discrimination between right and wrong, control of the mind, control of the senses, non-violence, celibacy, charity. Remember, this is for all human beings. This is not just for the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, but for everybody. Reading of scripture, simplicity, satisfaction, that means being satisfied with whatever Krishna has given you, and not over-endeavoring for more than is your quota. Rendering service to saintly persons, gradually taking leave of unnecessary engagements. In other words, as we know, that one should not cultivate material attachments, but should be gradually trying to get rid of them, or else he or she is committing offenses on chanting. Observing the futility, that means uselessness, of the unnecessary activities of human society. In other words, gradually looking at things like sports, which I know you're all attached to. There was some soccer championship recently. What was that?
Still going on.
It's still going on. Which one is it? Who's going to win?
European Championship.
Yeah, but who's going to win it?
Germany.
Germany, okay. So that's the futility of unnecessary activities of human society. I remember one time I was in Fiji, and in the middle of the night in the ashram, which is where I was, I heard the loud screaming from all the devotees of Haribol, Haribol. And I thought, these devotees are very Krishna conscious. So what happened is that I said, next morning, I said, ask the devotees, what's happening? And they said, last night Fiji won the rugby or something, championships. And I said to the devotees, you were all watching? And they said, yes. And I said, but I know the women are not in such maya like the men to watch these things. So I asked some of the ladies, did you watch that too? They said, yes. I said, you're in just as much maya as your brothers. So, it's unnecessary, but it's part of Prajalpa. Remaining silent and grave and avoiding unnecessary talk. That's a difficult one. Considering whether one is the body or the soul. Are we the body or the soul? Nobody knows. What? No, we're the body. I had one sannyasi who told me when I was a brahmachari that everybody else is a soul except for you. He was so angry with me because I was very disobedient. He should remain nameless. He's the one who gave me sannyasa ultimately. So, distributing food equally to all living entities, both men and animals. Food for life, kijai. Right? Sometimes people criticize food for life and they say, what? Food for death or something like that in their criticism. Prabhupada actually said that no one should go hungry within a certain radius of our temple, specifically the Mayapur temple. Seeing every soul as a part of the Supreme Lord. That means not hating anyone. Yomam pashati sarvacha. Right? Sarvam chamayi pashyati. Tashaham na pranashami. Sacha me na pranashati. Anyone know that verse? One who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me is not lost to me, nor am I ever lost to him. Hearing about the activities and instructions given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the shelter of the saintly persons, chanting about those activities and instructions, always remembering these activities and instructions, trying to render service, performing worship, offering obeisances, becoming a servant, becoming a friend, and surrendering one's whole self. O King Yudhisthira, these 30 qualifications must be acquired in the human form of life. Simply by acquiring these qualifications, one can satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And these some of them appear to be like sub-religious principles. And they are. Sometimes people ask, why aren't so many sub-religious principles listed in the Bhagavad Gita? Does anyone know the answer to that? Can someone guess? Besides Mother Irma, she knows everything. She's my mentor. Why? I mean, why don't you have, like, don't eat meat, fish, and eggs in the Bhagavad Gita? People ask you that question on Sankirtan all the time. Where does it say in the Bhagavad Gita? Yeah, why?
Is it because in the age that when Bhagavad Gita was spoken, there was no need to say don't eat fish and eggs?
People were eating meat, fish, and eggs in that age. That's a good answer. You're getting there. It's a very good answer. You're actually getting there.
There was no need to say because people were already more familiar about what to do.
You're getting there. Who is the Bhagavad Gita spoken to?
Arjuna was already.
Yeah, got it. You got it. Because Arjuna was already in that platform. If someone's already on the platform, you don't. If you preach them, it's an insult. I mean, for example, sometimes I'm giving initiation to an 85-year-old Indian lady. Do I ask her to vow not to have illicit sex? You do? I don't. Because her whole life she's been chased through her husband, who's probably died by now. So basically, and intoxication. My dear old lady, don't take intoxication. And she'll probably ask me, what is intoxication? No tea. Okay, got it. No illicit sex. Anyway, in the West, you got to say it, even if someone's 150 years old. Because I was visiting my grandmother one time who passed away, and in an old people's home. And I asked her, I don't know, she talked to me. I gave her some Radhakund water, but she asked me, she pointed out a man who was 102. She said, I think he's for me. I was thinking, this proves what Prabhupada says and Krishna says, that lust never disappears when one gets old. Anyway, so basically the principles, of course we're talking about sub-religious principles. The sub-religious principles are meant to be followed by everybody in human society. Very, very important. So, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna doesn't talk so much about, he mentions some things about sub-religious principles, obviously. He doesn't talk so much about them because he's talking to Arjuna. So you may have to consult the Manusamhita and other literatures to understand other sub-religious principles. Okay. So, I think we can start our ethical discussion. The ethical discussion starts with talking about the... Where's my notes for that? All right. Okay. It starts with talking about Maharaj Parikshit's encounter with the personality of Kali. So Maharaj Parikshit came across this low-class man, Shudra, who was dressed like a king. And this low-class man, Shudra, was beating a cow and a bull, and actually beating the bull, and the bull was standing on one leg, and the bull was urinating. And the one leg that the bull was standing on represents the principle of truthfulness. The other legs are cleanliness, merciful, and austerity. So, what Maharaj Parikshit did, of course, he stopped the personality of Kali from beating the bull. And he got ready to kill the personality of Kali. At the same time, he asked the bull, who has done this to you? Now, obviously, it was Kali who did that to him, at least externally. But it's interesting that the bull, being the personality of religion personified, of Dharma, did not blame Kali. He understood that whatever happened to him, this was a topic we took up in class the other day, that whatever happened to him was done because of the action or the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he was acting through the time factor and through the material energy. And so he didn't blame Kali, at least the bull didn't blame Kali, for what was being done to him. In fact, the statement is there in the Bhagavatam that someone who blames the perpetrator for doing something is just as culpable or guilty as the person who has done it. Now, why is that? Because the person is seeing something happening without the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That does not mean that one doesn't avoid the perpetrator or the person who is hurting him, or take some adequate steps so that the person is given justice by the proper person, which is the Kshatriya in Vedic society, who is acting on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. However, a devotee of the Lord doesn't hate anyone or hate anything. In the Ishopanishad we find the same statement. Yastu sarvani bhutani atmanevanu pashati sarva bhuteshu chatmanam tato navigubhshate. A devotee doesn't hate anyone and anything because he sees everyone as part and parcel of Krishna. Of course, we avoid people, we send people to jail, but we don't hate them. There's a difference. So, apart from that, Parikshit Maharaj was getting ready to punish Kali, and Kali took shelter at his lotus feet. And this also shows how a great devotee accepts even someone who is the lowest class imaginable person and gives them shelter. And of course, Kali was asking for places where he could live. Maharaj Parikshit originally gave him places where the four regulative principles were broken, and Kali didn't accept that. He said, your kingdom, those four regulative principles are not being broken. It's very hard to find a place. Therefore, give me another place. And finally, he was given the place where gold was hoarded. Because wherever gold is hoarded, then the final principle of religiosity, which is standing in this age, truthfulness, becomes diminished or extinguished. Because when you have gold, when you have not only gold, but money, opulence, power, prestige, then there is the tendency, even for a devotee, to deviate from his moral standards. In fact, according to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, when one of the causes of anarthas, in fact, the most difficult final cause of anarthas is the byproducts of bhakti. Because as you perform bhakti yoga, then people start to appreciate you, you may get money, just the same things that Lord Chaitanya warns us against. The dhanam, the janam, the sundarim, kavitam va, jagatidisha, kamaye. He says, wealth, women, of course for women that means men, I guess. I don't know. That's what I would think. Prestige, power, Janma Ishwarya, Shurasya Shivir, Edama, Da, woman, that's from Queen Kunti's prayers. These things can actually cause anarthas to grow in your heart. So that's why one has to be very, very careful in Kali Yuga. As far as the principle of truthfulness, as far as other religious principles, when one is dealing with these particular factors, especially with wealth. What do they say? Power corrupts absolutely. Wealth corrupts absolutely. Unless one is very careful. We're going to be giving remedial measures the final portion of this class. So, let's take some questions. Anybody have any questions about what I spoke about so far? Yes?
What about situations when we experience some bad karma against Krishna's will because of power, doing it in the past, but when you're feeling that pain, the person tells you it's your karma, and the person who did it to you tells you it's your karma, you're suffering because, and that person is watching you in the face.
Well, obviously that is not compassionate. We do not tell that to people. If someone is suffering, even apart from being attacked, let's say if someone has some disease like cancer, some terminal disease, don't go to the hospital and say, Prabhu, you're not the body and that's your karma anyway, and Krishna's purifying you. When I joined the movement, that statement that Krishna is purifying you was spoken at least 20 times a day to me. when I first joined the movement, we were eating food, of course, with a lot of hot peppers and everything. Remember that? And then, of course, we had this symptom called, I hate to mention it, diarrhea. So they said, that's purification, Prabhu, when you join the Hare Krishna movement. And then the temple president would yell at me, here's more purification. Then you get sick. You're really getting purified, Prabhu. And I was thinking, this is purification. I'm in the wrong movement. So therefore, if someone has been attacked or someone is sick, we should be compassionate. That's one of the basic ethical principles. Compassion means, as we mentioned in one of my previous seminars, compassion means we try to understand their particular feelings and needs. So when we try to understand their particular feelings and needs and reflect them to them, either through body language or words or both, then the person will feel understood and loved, and that need will be met. And ultimately, it may take some time, but it is up to the individual person to come to the conclusion. Tattena kampam sushamikshimana bunjanabatma kritam vipakam ridvat vapurvir ridam namaste jive to yomukti pade sadaivat. That ultimately, I'm simply getting a token reaction for what I was destined to have. But that takes time. You can't impose that on someone. And also, people should take adequate measures to avoid these things. Just like another seminar that I'm giving right now, not right now, but on the internet, is based on health. How to avoid lifestyle diseases. You're all welcome to watch my Facebook page, PK Goswami Das. It's an advertisement. Where we're posting a series of videos that we have, interviews we have done with a doctor in Germany. Everybody respects German doctors, right? Yes, Germans are the best. So, based upon avoiding diseases that devotees get because of certain lifestyle issues, either eating the wrong thing or eating too much of the wrong thing or eating too much of the right thing or not exercising or not getting different vitamins, etc. So we're doing this to help devotees avoid these problems. So we should take adequate measures to avoid problems. However, even after taking those adequate measures, if those problems occur, then we can understand it's Krishna. We should not blame Krishna for our foolishness. I remember some incidents where devotees died in car accidents because they had not slept adequately the night before. In other words, they fell asleep while driving the car. And some devotees went to Prabhupada and said, this was Krishna's mercy. And Prabhupada said, no, it was their foolishness. So don't blame Krishna. And don't even blame your karma. I mean, you see so many devotees not only blaming karma, but they blame what they call their samskaras. They say, I can't stop having illicit sex. I've had bad samskaras. You're not taking responsibility for your actions. Or they say, I went to my astrologer. He said, for the next 5 years, I'm going through this bad period. Well, I won't be able to follow the regulated principles. It ain't my fault, Maharaj. Don't preach to me. So, I hear this all the time, actually. Especially, more than these astrological stuff, I hear there's some samskaras. Forget about it. When you chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. You do a lot of things that are very interesting. You change the lines on your palm. Prabhupada said, chant and dance. You create your good fortune, or Prabhupada creates, or the holy names create your good fortune. Previously, we didn't have too much good fortune. And Cheto Darpana Marshnam. You're taking laundry soap to your heart. In other words, you're cleaning your heart. Cleansing the heart. Cheto Darpana Marshanam Bhava Mahat Vagni Nirvarpanam. Anyone's heard about that before? You're cleansing your heart. And yes, you may have some remnants of things, but you got to do Vacho Vegam Manasakarota Vegam. Hare Krishna. That means these pushies will be there. Devotees come to me sometimes and they ask, how long are these pushies going to be there? I said, you got a material body, buddy. They're going to be there. Because the body is going to naturally be inclined, whereas the body in touch with the soul, or the subtle body, is going to be inclined towards those things. So you got to tolerate. Just bite your teeth. Bite your tongue, too. But and just tolerate. Tamsa Tiksha Bharata. I mean, what's the first lesson in the Gita, right? Tolerate. These urges will be there. I mean, just like I follow a certain diet, and every time I walk by a pizza store, I want to take pizza. But I know I can't take it, because I'll die. R.I.P. dying because of pizza. Rest in peace. R.I.P. Rest in peace. So, therefore, I tolerate. So much pushing. We're always going to have these pushings. Young man sees a young girl. What do they say? When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie? That's amore. That's an Italian song. Your brain scan becomes like that of someone on cocaine, right? So you tolerate. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. So don't blame your samskaras. Don't blame your astrology. You can do it. Ekeha Kurunandana. You can actually do it. And not only can you do that, but you can accomplish miracles for Krishna. Prabhupada expected that of us. He expected us to do amazing things for him, to become leaders. All of you are supposed to become leaders in the Krishna conscious movement. So, with that in mind, I think we have to end because it's time for the next seminar. Any other quick questions? Yes, Guru Bhakti.
You said about how power corrupts, money corrupts.
Yes.
So when we are in a situation like there's like a big temple, there are leaders that deal with a lot of money, and we let's say collect donations and give to temple. So how can we be sure that should we take a receipt for how the money should be spent? How can we be sure if the fact that these people, leaders, they're not taking even little bit, but if it's like $1 million, they'll take like little bit, but it's 10,000 on a regular basis. So how should we be sure that they are not corrupted?
Put an application in their mobile phone that monitors them 24/7. No, I'm just joking. Make sure that they're always associated with, but we're going to touch upon how to avoid these things, but just briefly, make sure that their finances are perfectly transparent and they're reporting their finances, and that money, I mean, there's a lot of things you can do with money, that when they're counting the money, there's someone else there, someone else depositing, someone else who does the financial reports. There's checks and balances you can put in place for money, especially within the Krishna consciousness movement. Because we've seen, not only sometimes have devotees taken money when they shouldn't have taken money. There was one example where a devotee sold a temple and kept the money. He sold, it was in Hawaii. You know about this, mother. He sold the whole temple and kept the money. So there have to be adequate checks and balances and supervision for everything that goes on in the movement. What do they say? In God we trust, everybody else pays cash. Anyway. In other words, we trust people, but there have to be adequate safeguards to prevent people becoming lured to do anything that would be improper. Because practically speaking, there are many people who have good intentions who become allured by money, wealth, members of the opposite sex, and then something happens. As they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So we have to end now because it's time for the next seminar. Thank you very much. Same time, same station tomorrow. All glories to His Divine Grace. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.